What is up, fan addicts, fan guy addicts? It's your boy, Josh Fanguy, here to bring you another installment of the Ultimate Fan Guy Fantasy Power Hour. So, what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to talk about each team a little bit, give you some fantasy tidbits and highlights from each team, and kind of give you some advice on who maybe to keep your eyes out for on waivers, who's worth dropping, and just general trends we like and don't like to see from each team. So we're going to go down the list. We're just going to go through each team. So if you don't have time to watch the whole video, I am going to have the logos popping up over here. And that way you could kind of just skip to your team and get to the pertinent information. We're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons. So what did we learn from the Atlanta Falcons this week? In my opinion, not a lot. Matt Ryan is who we thought he is, which to me is a low-end quarterback one. He is going to have big weeks where he ends up in the top 5. He's going to have bad weeks where he ends up outside the top 12. It's just what you get with Matt Ryan. The good news is this is a pass-heavy team. They are going to be passing the ball a lot. So Matt Ryan's rest of your outlook, for me, looks like a low-end quarterback one. The other big takeaway from this week's game and last week's game is that Julio Jones is going to be the 1A in Atlanta. Calvin Ridley is not the 1A. Calvin Ridley is the 1B. Now, Calvin Ridley is still going to be a wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy. But, for all the people that were hyping Calvin Ridley up as taking Julio's spot as the 1A on that team, you're wrong. And I've been saying it all season that you've been wrong. He had some good games. He's a very good receiver. And he's one of the better 1Bs in the league. Let's be real, if not the best. But he's still 1B to Julio. Julio still has the trust and eye of Matt Ryan. He out-targeted and outgained Ridley this week. And I think that that's a trend we're going to see for most weeks the remainder of the year. I do think Ridley's going to have, the occasional day where he outdoes Julio, but I don't think it's going to be anything like it was at the beginning of this season. Something I don't like to see, if you're a Todd Gurley owner, is that he had no catches and no targets in this game. That is concerning because one of the reasons you like Todd Gurley as a running back in fantasy is his receiving volume, especially in PPR leagues. So the fact that Gurley's not really getting involved in the pass game in Atlanta is a little concerning to me, if you're a Gurley owner. And the fact that Hill had actually 11 carries. So they're clearly trying to manage Todd Gurley's workload. Now, this might bode well for Gurley because it'll keep him fresh. But, he's not going to be the three down bell cow that you really wanted. Also worth noting on this team is that Hayden Hurst has had 7 targets in each of the last 2 games. And that Russell Gage is really kind of falling off the fantasy radar. But Hayden Hurst is also trending up. Very pass-heavy offense, can support all 3 of those pass catchers. And obviously, if you're Matt Ryan and you have 3 pass catchers you could support for fantasy, you're probably going to be an okay QB1 for the remainder of the year. And I believe he will be. Moving on to the team that they played and beat, who I'm still kind of unsure how. If someone could explain to me how odds makers had Atlanta as the underdog in this one, I don't understand. Carolina's a far worse team than Atlanta and should have easily been the underdog in this game. I don't know how they weren't, but I'm okay with it. I hope the bookies keep making this mistake in the future. I don't think Carolina's a very good team. I think they are absolutely, positively, unequivocally the worst team in the NFC South. Records don't necessarily speak for it, but I'm going to get into some details here. Now, look, openly, I'm a Saints fan. I've been a Saints fan my whole life. I've been from South Louisiana, so I was a fan long before we ever won our Super Bowl, back when people had brown paper bags over their heads. And I got to watch a lot of Teddy Bridgewater games, and I don't think he's that special. I know a lot of analysts out there are kind of starting to hype him up a little. I never thought he was that special. I never thought he was that good. He's a good game manager, clock manager type quarterback. He's not going to be good for fantasy, and any analyst who tells you he's going to be good for fantasy, I don't trust, because Teddy Bridgewater is not a good fantasy quarterback. In this game, he went 15 for 23, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Mike Davis averaged 5 yards a carry. It's important to notice that Robbie Anderson is still out targeting DJ Moore, DJ Moore with Curtis Samuel right behind. So I do think that this is a three-pronged receiving core. And week to week, it's going to be tough to trust any of them. I think the one who has shown us the most ability to trust him this year is Robbie Anderson. So I do think Anderson's the guy you can trust out of those three the most. But I think in general, what this means for the Panthers' passing attack is not good. It means that week to week, either one of those three guys, Anderson, Moore, and now we're even seeing Samuel get involved, is going to score a reasonable amount of fantasy points, and the other two are going to get left in the dust. This is only going to get further muddied, I think, by the return of Christian McCaffrey, who, everybody's saying, oh, Mike Davis, Mike Davis, Mike Davis. Look, Mike Davis has been great while McCaffrey's out, and I actually disagree with most analysts and believe that Mike Davis, due to his performance, has actually earned an increased role in the Carolina Panthers offense going forward. However, I do think it is a very small role. Some people are saying McCaffrey's going to come back and get 100% of his workload. I disagree. I think McCaffrey's going to come back to get 85% of his workload. But I do think Mike Davis has actually earned a spot in this offense now. A small one, not fantasy relevant once McCaffrey comes back. But McCaffrey is a completely different level of player than Mike Davis, which I actually think is going to affect his receivers negatively, simply because I don't believe in Teddy Bridgewater. If you do believe in Teddy Bridgewater and you think he's a capable quarterback, McCaffrey is going to be coming back is going to be great for all three of these receivers. I just am not a believer in that philosophy. But I am aware enough to know and to explain that we don't all have the same philosophy as our players. So my philosophy is that Teddy Bridgewater is not a great fantasy quarterback. Therefore, he can only support one fantasy relevant receiver per week. Others might disagree. And if you agree that he can support more than that, then obviously, there's more to look at there. But for me, Robbie Anderson's the only guy I trust here. I do still trust DJ Moore a little. The problem is it's going to be so game dependent. And once McCaffrey comes back, I think it's going to be even a muddier offense. And we're not going to know where at all to go with it. So, on to the Patriots. So the first note I have written by the Patriots is Cam sucky sucky. Because Cam was sucky. He went 15 for 25, 174 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Man, he looks not great. Like, he really doesn't. They're not letting him. They're not letting him run like they should. Maybe he's banged up and can't run how we'd like him to. But this offense this passing offense in particular looks to be a mess. You saw the emergence of Jacoby Myers the last 2 weeks. Everybody saw him this week when he got 10 targets. But last week, it's important to note, he actually got 6 targets in last week's game. So it's not a complete out of the blue emergence. That actually lends a little bit of credence for me to think that Jacoby Myers is actually going to be involved somewhat in this offense moving forward. However, I don't want anything to do with any Patriots receiver unless I am absolutely desperate. Like if you have a bye week situation, or you're sitting on Galladay and Thomas or something like that, and just guys where you're just in a messy wide receiver situation in a 12 to 14 team league. If you're going to throw a dart at a Patriots receiver at this point, I think it should be Jacoby Myers, but it's still a dart throw because this offense is a mess. The one highlight of this offense I'm going to talk about is Damian Harris. He had a good game, over 100 yards again. But again, it was a close game. And he is going to be very, very game flow dependent. In games where the Patriots are close or winning, Damian Harris is going to put up serviceable fantasy numbers. In games where they're losing, he's not. And the reason for this is because he's not involved in the pass game. So if you're in a PPR league, which most leagues are, Damian Harris is just a weekly fill-in right now because he's just not getting any work in the pass game at all. Worth noting, he does have a date with the Jets next week, which is a game the Patriots should be able to hang in. So I do predict Damian Harris to have a very good week next week. But unless they get him involved in the passing game, he's no more than an RB3 or flex play. Moving on. And the New England backfield is just a mess to begin with, right? Like we can't, but Harris is the guy in games where they're in it. but I don't know how many games they're going to be in it because their passing offense looks really bad. So we're going to talk about Buffalo. Josh Allen, where are you, dude? This is one I have been wrong about. I thought after 3 weeks this guy was going to be in the actual MVP race after 3 weeks. I didn't think he was going to win it. I still think it's going to be Russell Wilson, but I thought he was going to be neck and neck with Wilson. And man, has he fallen off the last few weeks. And every week I'm ready for him to come back, and I'm ready for him to come back, and ready for him to come back. And this week, granted, New England's defense is pretty good, so I'm trying not to read too much into it. Allen went 11 for 18 for 154 yards. No touchdowns in the air. One pick. He did get a rushing touchdown, and he did get 10 carries on the ground that salvaged his fantasy day. He put up about 14 to 16 points, depending on your league scoring, which is not what you want out of Josh Allen. I mean, I hate to just say it like that. That's what you expect out of Daniel Jones, or but that's not what you expect out of Josh Allen. You expect him to do better. And so those of us who have invested in Allen, I don't think it's time to hit the full-blown panic button yet, but I do think it is worth looking into other options if somehow Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow is still on your waiver wire. It might be time to pick them up and start getting a backup plan in place in case Allen continues this wretched string of games. Moss and Singletary actually split carries in this backfield this week, completely evenly. Each got one target. Moss did get the goal line work, which is worth noting. So this backfield, it does look like Zach Moss is starting to take over from Devin Singletary. I still do see this being a full-blown committee for the remainder of the year, which does limit each guy's upside. Both are ranging as flex plays for me right now. If what we really want for fantasy purposes is for one of these guys to emerge as a clear back. If one of these guys does emerge as the clear back, they're going to clearly be an RB2 type guy for the rest of the year. But as long as they're in a committee, it's like RB3/flex. The next important thing to note, from this game is Stephon Diggs, man. He's a target hog over there, more than we even thought. The dude got 9 targets. The next guy on that team had 2. Now, granted, Allen only attempted 18 passes, but 50% of them were to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is locked and loaded as a wide receiver 1 for the remainder of the year, assuming that Josh Allen doesn't completely fall off a cliff, which he has, but assuming that he gets even remotely his form back, and they do have some softer matchups coming up. Diggs is locked and loaded as an easy tight end, a wide receiver 1 for the remainder of the year, simply due to volume, if nothing else. He's got the eye and trust of Josh Allen. So, those of you who drafted Stephon Diggs, good job. I personally didn't believe in him preseason. I thought John Brown was going to be the guy there, but and I do still think John Brown is going to retain a role once he gets going to full speed. But I definitely do believe that Stephon Diggs is the guy, and he's the guy you want in that offense. So Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 1, remainder of the year for me, and I've said that the last few weeks. So that's what we got to say about the Bills. Their defense is looking sort of We're going to talk about the Rams. So the Rams, super deceiving stat line for Jared Goff. Goff is garbage is the headline here. Goff is garbage is the headline here. He did throw for 355, but he threw for 355 on 61 attempts, and he threw 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown. His passer rating was something like a 12 or a 15 or something like that. It was awful. This could be due to Miami's defense, which we're about to talk about, which I think Miami's defense is really trending up and looking really good. But I'm still not sold because Goff has been looking pretty bad the last few weeks. And this week, even though they attempted 1 billion pass attempts, and he still didn't put up even that good of numbers for fantasy day. Though we did have a couple guys who did. Before I get into their receiving core, I'm going to talk about this backfield. This backfield is a complete mess. This backfield is a complete mess, and I don't trust any of them. I don't want to play any of them. I want no part of any of them. I'm going to talk about this just like I did about Buffalo, except we're going to say it's like Buffalo times 100. Until one of these guys establishes themselves as the guy, I want none of them, and I want nothing to do with any of them, and you shouldn't either. You're gonna get your hopes up one week with Darrell Henderson putting up 30 points, and then the next week he's gonna put up 2. There's no floor with these guys. Like none of these guys have any kind of floor whatsoever. All their floor is bottomed out at 0. And you got Akers, just like kind of, I don't know, man. That I want nothing to do with the backfield. So there's my advice on the Los Angeles backfield: just stay away. Um, in terms of the receiving core, any game that Goff throws 61 pass attempts is probably going to be good for Kupp and Woods. This was no different. Both of them had good days. Woods, notably, they are actually keeping him involved on the ground. He had a rushing touchdown as well again this week. So Woods there moving around and utilizing in creative ways. I do think that in most games, it's going to be a dart throw as to whether Kupp or Woods gets the volume there, because I don't think Goff is good enough most weeks where he's not throwing 61 passes to service both of those guys. We have seen it the last few years, so I shouldn't say it like that. But ultimately, I think Kupp and Woods are going to be doing this number all year, and ultimately, Kupp seems to be the guy who gets more targets than Woods, though Woods does seem to be involved in offense in creative ways. So this offense is a mess right now. Obviously, if you have Kupp or Woods, you feel okay about it. I think both those guys are going to be fine going forward. The backfield's an absolute mess, and I don't trust Goff at all. And this defense, you have a rookie quarterback, and you have the best defensive lineman in the league, and you can't rattle the rookie quarterback. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Rams are an absolute mess right now. Going on to the rookie quarterback, we're going to talk about the Dolphins and Tua time. Or should I say Pua time? Because Tua was Pua. I want to trademark that shirt. Tua is Pua. I didn't think he was that good, man. I might be too hard on him. It was his first start. But, when you watched, I'm just going to compare it to what we've seen this year. When you watch Joe Burrow play his first game, even in that loss, you were like, wow, this kid's got it, man. When you watch Justin Herbert come in, when Tyrod Taylor went out this year, you looked at him and you thought, man, this kid's got it. Watching Tua play, I didn't feel any magic, and they won. And I felt no magic from this guy. I think he's got bust written all over him. And I think what they did to Fitz was absolutely awful. I truly believe that. I did read a report today that kind of explained the situation, which made it make a little more sense to me. And that is, Miami's got a lot of early round draft picks, and they need to find out if Tua is their guy. Because if Tua is not their guy, then they have early picks next year from the Texans, who are doing poorly right now. So it might be a very high pick. And they might want to look at a quarterback if Tua is not going to be the guy. From a strictly strategic and logical standpoint, I get that. I do. My problem is that Fitz was looking good, and this team's still in the hunt. They're still in the hunt. The Patriots look bad. The Jets look bad. The Bills aren't looking great. Miami is in the hunt in this division. Play Fitzpatrick. You have a very solid defense right now. And Tua looks like Pua. Just to give you the actual stats, Tua went 12 for 22, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. This is a game they won 40-something, 30-something, or 40-something points. Gaskin, 18 carries, 47 yards, 1 TD. Targets went Gaskin 5, Preston Williams 6. Parker only got like 1 target, though it was a touchdown. The theme around this is, as long as they're going to play Tua, I don't want to read too much into anything this week, because there's a billion question marks, including how hard I'm being on Tua. Let's be real. It was his first week. There are a billion question marks around this. However, my prediction is that Tua is Pua, and that they're going to have Ryan Fitzpatrick in there in 3 games. because Tua is going to fail so hard the next few weeks. Could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong for the kid's sake. I do. I just didn't feel magic from him this week at all, and he's not utilizing his. He's got very talented receiver in Devontae Parker that he's just not utilizing. Um, got a very good tight end in Gesicki. He's not utilizing. I don't know what's wrong with this kid. The game might just be too fast for him, and I don't feel that way about Herbert or Burrow. So I don't know why I feel like the game's too fast for Tua, but I do. I just don't. He just didn't look good. He just didn't look good. And there's too many questions around this offense. Devontae Parker is a wide receiver 4 till next notice. I want nothing to do with any of this offense. Maybe Gaskin is still going to be playable because it does seem like he's going to be getting a lot of check down throws. So for this offense right now, Gaskin's the only guy I trust. Gaskin's the only guy I want to trust. And Gaskin's the only guy I would recommend playing if you have a choice. Until we see more from Tua. And he might turn out to not be Pua, but we'll just have to wait and see. Tua looked like Pua. So we're going to go to the Steelers now. A big game between the Steelers and the Ravens this week. For me, and I might be jumping the gun because I'm talking about the Ravens here a little bit, which I'll be talking about next, but both these teams' defenses look legit, right? Because both these teams' offenses are pretty good, and both teams' defenses kept the other in check. That's the big highlight from this game is that we got what we expected from both defenses. Steelers, Big Ben threw for 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. 182 yards, not great for Big Ben. The Ravens defense did keep him in check, however. Connor had a middling 3 yards per carry for like 45 yards and a touchdown. He had like 15 carries for 45 and a touch. Wasn't very much targeted in the pass game. So, the Ravens really stepped up and contained the Steelers here. The interesting thing about the Steelers I'd like to point out is their target share. We had Claypool with 8, Juju with 7 targets. Deontay Johnson only had 3 this week. Ebron had 5. So this is another team where, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, it's another situation, though not as bad as like Carolina, because Big Ben is a much better quarterback for fantasy than Teddy Bridgewater. A much better quarterback for fantasy, in my opinion. So I do think that Big Ben has a chance, as he's shown in the past with Juju and Antonio Brown. He can support 2 relevant fantasy receivers. However, you look at this team, you got Claypool, you got Juju, and you got Johnson. I don't think Big Ben can support all 3. And I think if he tries to support all 3, it's going to turn into another situation where only one of these guys is going to score you good fantasy points in the week. The other 2 are going to be dart throws, and that makes all 3 of them dart throws in a manner of speaking, because we don't know who's going to get the volume week to week. And so I think it definitely makes this situation muddy and makes it worth monitoring. I'm obviously rostering Claypool, Juju, and Deontay Johnson, but I would like 1 or 2 of these guys to emerge as the primary options here. And until they do, I think it lowers the upside on all 3. Though I do think, man, I can't even say that. I think one of these guys each week is going to have a 0 floor. One of these guys, and it will switch week to week. One of these guys could goose egg you each week, and that's dangerous in fantasy. For me, I look for high floors, and I don't feel good about any of the Steelers receivers' floors. Steelers defense looked very good. We got exactly what we wanted from one of the best defenses in the league. Steelers are still undefeated. They are going to be contenders this year. I don't think they have what it takes when it comes down to playing teams like Kansas City. And I don't think Big Ben's anywhere near his prime. But the Steelers look good. They played a really good game against, not against Uncle Rico, but against the the Baltimore Ravens. They played a really good game defensively, and this was the kind of gritty game these 2 teams are known for. So I'm not trying to read too much into the takeaways from this week. But my big takeaway for the Steelers is simply that we don't know where they're, week to week, their targets on their receivers are going to be very muddy. Going to the Ravens, again, already talked about their defense. Their defense, super good. We knew their defense would be super good. It is super good, and it did good in this game, even though they lost. Lamar Jackson questions continue as they have the last few weeks. The guy went 13 for 28. That's an under 50% completion percentage. 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He did salvage his fantasy day somewhat with 65 yards rushing on 16 carries. So Lamar Jackson, man, yeah, he's back to what we thought he was 2 years ago. He's kind of showing that last year was a little bit of a fluke, which I thought it was last year. I was a believer in him by the end of the year because how can you not be, But I think this year he's shown himself to be what he is. And without his legs running a lot and then revolving the offense around this guy, he's not going to put up the, no number one quarterback. I do think he's a borderline QB1 still. I think he's a bottom end QB1, high end QB2. And I do have hope for him, especially because he still runs the ball. But man, he's not looked good. And if you spend a high draft pick on him, you're certainly not feeling good about it right now. Not feeling good about it. So the backfield here also real muddy. And this is without Mark Ingram. When Mark Ingram's playing, it's even muddier. But right now, you had Dobbins. Dobbins got 15 carries. Gus Edwards got 15 carries. Lamar Jackson got 16 carries. Now, 15 carries is a lot. So, you could argue that all these guys are fine plays as long as they keep this run-heavy style that they ran. But they're not going to. And when Mark Ingram comes back, it's going to get even muddier. So, this backfield is one to avoid. Really, quite honestly, the only guy I want to play on the entire offense of the Ravens is Mark Andrews. I think he's the only guy who has a pretty safe floor week to week. And the rest of this team is all boom or bust. So, Mark Andrews is a great play. I think Dobbins is trending up, but you also have Gus Edwards trending up. Willie Snead got a bunch of targets this week. I don't trust, you got drama with Hollywood Brown talking about how he wasn't getting enough targets. There's no soldiers or something. So the squeaky wheel might get the grease. I would keep an eye out for Marquise Brown next week because the squeaky wheel does get the grease. But there's just too much drama there. Lamar Jackson's not a very good quarterback, in my opinion. I do think he's a running back who throws. But Andrews, Andrews is the only guy I want on this offense right now. I think until Lamar Jackson shows us the consistency he showed us last year, again, that's another guy you could see if any of the young guns are on waivers right now. Pick them up. Onward to the Titans. So, the Titans. What happened, boys? The Titans. What happened, boys? So, Tannehill went 18 for 30, 233, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Derrick Henry carried the ball 18 times for 112 and a touch. We knew Derrick Henry would have a good game. We called that one. Derrick Henry should, in theory, run all over the Bengals. Matter of fact, I'm surprised he didn't run more. He was averaging over 5 yards a carry. He was carrying the defenders around. He looked like a man among boys. And, I thought this was going to be, personally, a Derrick Henry runs the ball into the ground on the Bengals, and the Bengals have to throw all day. The Bengals did throw a bunch, but Derrick Henry did not run as much as we thought. Corey Davis, 10 targets. A.J. Brown, 7. The next highest was Ferkser with 3. Jonnu Smith only got 2. Humphreys only got 2. I'm starting to feel very uncomfortable with this passing game. Very. And it's getting to the point where the only 2 guys I want to trust from the Titans are Tannehill, who seems to have an okay spot as a low-end quarterback 1, and Derrick Henry. The passing options for the Titans are all muddy right now. I thought I liked Jonnu Smith's trajectory this week. I was way wrong on him. Thought he was going to have a big game playing against the worst defense as far as tight ends go in the league, and somehow Ferkser out-targeted him. So I don't know if they're just getting the wrong guys involved. Tannehill's trying to make too much happen on the outside. But you guys were winning games when you were utilizing Jonnu Smith. And now you're losing games when you're trying to feed the ball to Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. So I read some stories that Davis got these targets because they were covering Brown so hard. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this is another situation where the quarterback's not good enough to support 3 pass catching relevant guys. And so one of these guys will hit every week. But again, it's like playing roulette. Like, which one's going to hit? I think the safest bet is actually A.J. Brown still. I think Corey Davis is trending up. I think Jonnu Smith is trending down. And I'm having a hard time trusting Jonnu after his last 3 games. I do think the Titans lost 2 of those. So I do think maybe if they take a look at it and say, "Ooh, what did we change?" And the change is you're not getting Jonnu Smith involved. So we'll see. We're going to go on to my boy Joe Burrow and the Bengals. What an upset, right? Bengals upset the Titans this week. Crazy, crazy game. So Burrow, 26 of 37, 2 TDs, 200 some odd passing yards. It was a good day for Burrow, and he looked good. Looked like he had command of that team. And it looks like the team wants to play for him. I love Joe Burrow for this reason. He seems like a really good leader. He seems like he's rallied this team around him, and they really want to play hard for him. And it's trickling over to the defense even. So I think the Bengals in general are trending up. Gio Bernard, 15 carries for 62 yards. Samaje Perine, 10 carries for 32 yards. Each had a touchdown. Those could have easily been Burrow's. Target share, Higgins with 9. Higgins is trending super up. He's led the team in targets, or been close to the lead in targets the last 3 or 4 games. Higgins is trending up. Tyler Boyd trending up. Auden Tate, 7 targets, along with Tyler Boyd, 7. Green only had 5. Gio Bernard had 4. The D's not looking as bad. It's another situation where they can't support all these guys. I do think Burrow and the Bengals are actually going to throw the ball enough to support 2 of them, probably. The ones I trust the most are Higgins and Boyd, and Mixon when he comes back. Bernard's looked great while Mixon's been out. But yeah, I trust Higgins and Boyd. I think Green is trending down, and I think this was kind of a flash in the pan for Auden Tate. Their defense is not looking as terrible. Joe Burrow really turning the Bengals around. Big win over the Titans. I love Burrow rest of the year. I think this team throws a lot. I think Burrow is a quarterback 1, a low-end quarterback 1 as well. So I do think he's streamable and playable most weeks. So take of that what you will. I'm going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. So this game with Cleveland, I'm going to give a big caveat while we get into it. And that caveat is this game had some nasty weather. And I mean some nasty weather out of the blue. So it went from like perfect, beautiful day to like nasty day. So this was going to be a day that we didn't know going into it necessarily it was going to be like that. But it's going to be dominated on the ground because they can't really throw the ball. So I'm going to give that bit of information before I start reaming these guys too bad. I actually like what I've seen from Derek Carr lately. He went 15 for 24 in this one with a touchdown. He had 6 carries for 41. I think the 6 carries for 41 is telling. What I think it tells about Derek Carr is that he's a smart quarterback, smarter than most people give him credit for. He's not the world beater, that he wants to be, but he's not as bad as people are trying to make him out to be. Derek Carr is an okay quarterback. He's an intelligent quarterback who makes good decisions for the most part. Story of the day here was Josh Jacobs, 31 carries for 128 yards. Obviously, when the weather turns sour, they're going to put the rock in the hands of their best player, who is Josh Jacobs, and he ran all over Cleveland. Waller, 6 targets with 5 catches. Renfro and Ruggs each had 4 targets. Again, I don't want to read too much into the offenses here because the weather in this game was very weird. What I will point out is I do like Derek Carr. I think you could stream him week to week. He's going to make some smart decisions. Jacobs is the guy we like. Waller still continuing to lead the team in targets. Is going to be a top 5 tight end, in my opinion. Top 5 to 6 tight end the rest of the year. Overall, Vegas defense looked good. The other big takeaway is that their defense is very hard to trust. They look very good in some games, very bad in other games. And this game, I'm chalking up to the weather. I'm going to try not to hype up the Vegas defense too much, even though they did hold Cleveland 2-6. It was a OBJ-less Cleveland, and it was in a freaking just terrible weather. Onward to the team that we were just talking about, the Cleveland Browns. So I knew Cleveland was going to have a bad day this week. And here's the thing. I actually think they improve without OBJ because I think OBJ is a distraction and a bad influence on the team. However, I just had a bad feeling about this matchup. These are two gritty teams, and I think Las Vegas is grittier. Cleveland, Mayfield went 12 for 25, 6 carries for 29. Kareem Hunt carried 14 times for 66 yards. Landry predictably led the team with 11 targets. The next guy had 3. So obviously what we're going to take away from this is with OBJ out, you can look for Jarvis Landry, and when he returns, Austin Hooper to get a lot of work. Rashard Higgins still in the mix. I think he's someone to monitor, but I don't think Baker Mayfield's very good. So I think you can expect Jarvis Landry to benefit from OBJ's absence on a fantasy level, but ultimately, this team is just not that good offensively. And Kareem Hunt's shown that he's more of a catching style scat back than a traditional running back in this one. Onward to the Jets. I mean, what can we say about the Jets that hasn't been said yet? Darnold, 18 for 30, 133. It's a lot of passing yards there, Sammy. 4 for 21 in rushing. So I'm just going to give myself another pat on the back because I admit when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm right. Look, I said this going into the draft last year that Sam Darnold, when he didn't compete in the combine, showed me everything I needed to see about him as a competitor. This kid's not a competitor. He's not. He's not a good NFL quarterback. He was scared of losing stock value by competing at the combine or showing what he could do. And he got what he deserved, which was going to the Jets. Karma paid him back for not being a competitor. When you're at the elite level of competition in the NFL, you need to be a competitor. Sam Darnold is not. He got a couple $1 million in his pocket. He's going to be a lifetime backup. Sam Darnold's not a good quarterback. The Jets need to move on from him as soon as possible. Now that I'm done reaming Sam Darnold, I'd like to talk about Adam Gase being a moron. He's just a terrible coach. Don't know how this guy gets jobs. He could hire Uncle Rico. He could hire Uncle Rico. It wouldn't save his job. This guy's terrible. How does he keep getting coaching jobs? NFL, I'm available. I can do a better job coaching than this guy. Book it. Book it. This guy's terrible. This guy's terrible. And then you got Pirine, their up-and-coming running back, out-touched by Frank Gore 10-8. Why are you feeding Frank Gore? Frank Gore is on his retirement bed. Why are you, in a losing season, giving the ball to Frank Gore instead of LaMichael Pirine? Why, in a losing season, are you giving the ball to your over-the-hill, dated, worn-down running back instead of the future? Adam Gase, you're a moron. Adam Gase, you're a moron. Adam Gase, you're a moron. You don't deserve a job coaching in the NFL. You don't. You don't. And I hope no team ever hires you again outside of a special teams sort of situation because you have no business being a head coach. You don't manage players well, obviously. You don't manage teams well, obviously. So owners, get this. Like, I don't know. Does this guy have a hot wife that he shares with y'all or something? I don't know. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how this guy has jobs. Now, granted, I get the Jets aren't great, but Adam Gase is terrible. My big takeaway is that Pirine got out-touched by Gore. Like, I can't even... I was big on Pirine this week. I'm not gonna lie. See, I admit when I'm wrong too. Like I was big on Pirine. I thought he was gonna have a big game against the Jets, particularly in the receiving. I thought he was gonna get a lot of catches. No, instead Barrios gets 11 targets from everyone's All-Star Sam Darnold. Now Crowder was out of this game, so I guess all those targets went to Barrios. Some guy named Jay Smith. I don't even know who Jay Smith is. Got 8. But yeah, let's not use the future of our team. Jets, you're hopeless. I hope Trevor Lawrence doesn't go to you because your coach is terrible and he scares all your good players away. You're awful, Jets. I'm sorry. I don't even want to spend another second on the Jets. They're just an awful team in every metric possible. And we go from the worst team in the league to, in my opinion, the best team in the league. The Chiefs. The Chiefs, y'all. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. It's not even close. It's not even close. They had a fluke loss to Tennessee. Mahomes, 31, 42, 416, 5 touchdowns. 2 to Hill, 1 to Kelsey, 1 to Hardman, 1 to Robinson. What I think we can learn from this game, and particularly what I love about the Chiefs and their entire coaching to their team, is yes, they're stacked on skill players. This is a fact. They're stacked on skill players. But they do take what the defense gives them. The Jets are a defense that plays to stop the run. That's what they do. Because Adam Gase is a moron. And he doesn't realize that the guy who's throwing the ball against you is the best quarterback in the NFL and can carve you up, I guess. I don't know. But the Jets played against the run. So what do? Light them the fuck up. They lit them up. This could have been Gase not wanting to get outshined by Le'Veon Bell, so he played against the run super hard. This also helped Clyde Edwards-Helaire to a minimum fantasy day. And it let Mahomes just blow the F up. So we already knew what we got in Mahomes. This isn't a surprise. This isn't a situation where I'm like, ooh, Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback 1. Patrick Mahomes never stopped being quarterback 1. They just had a few games where the defense said, we're not going to let Mahomes throw, which is, it's smarter. You want to make KC run the ball, slow the game down. Defenses that play against the pass against them are far more intelligent. Go figure. Adam Gase, you suck. Sorry I'm so hard on Gase. He's just such a terrible coach. And I just don't understand how guys like that get jobs. Anyway. KC takes what you give him. That's what we'll take from this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire only had 6 carries. Bell only had 6 carries. Williams had 3. Thompson had 4. We know this is a messy backfield. We knew it would be when they signed Le'Veon Bell. It's going to be a messy backfield for the rest of the year. Still think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best back to own there. But I do think he falls down to a low to middling RB2 because that backfield's a mess. Though, against better teams who protect and play against the pass, these guys aren't going to get volume. But week to week, is it going to be Bell? Is it going to be CEH? Is Darwin Thompson going to score 2 touchdowns? We just don't know. The other big takeaway is that this team's defense is super good, and therefore that's why I think they're the best team in the NFL. Their defense is really good. Their offense is the bomb. They have too many weapons. They have the best quarterback. What can you say about the Chiefs? We're going to talk about another team that I am not particularly high on, but they seem to be doing pretty good. And that is, wow, I don't even have their logo on here. The Indianapolis Colts. Okay, so the Colts are the forgotten team. So pretend we're going to have a horseshoe up right here. There's a horseshoe. And there's the Colts. The Colts. Rivers went 23 for 33, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. The passing situation on this team is a mess, right? I don't trust any of them. You never know if it's going to be Burton or if it's going to be Doyle or if it's going to be Nyheim Hines or if it's going to be, Pascal led the team in targets this week. So Phillip Rivers seems to have a reasonable floor for most weeks. But in terms of who I think he's going to catch the passes, I don't know. I have no flipping idea. Pascal got 6 targets. Hines got 5. Cox got 4. Burton got 4. Somebody else got 4. Phillip Rivers spreads the ball around a lot. None of these guys are marquee plays from week to week. The real story here we're going to talk about is the backfield, man. What happened here? I've been high on Jonathan Taylor, man. I thought he was trending up. Thought he was going to come out of that bye week on fire. And what happens? Wilkins gets 20 carries for 89. Taylor only got 11 for 22. Wilkins outcarried Taylor 2-1. And Hines still had 5 carries for 8. And Hines is the only guy who's super involved in the passing game. This is a backfield situation that is a mess. Absolute mess of a backfield situation. Still betting on Taylor. Lucky I don't have any stock of him in any of my actual fantasy leagues. But daily fantasy players, watch out. It's going to be a dart throw with Jonathan Taylor. This backfield's a mess. Phillip Rivers has insured of that. Yeah. And they did put a shellacking on the Lions here. The defense in Indy looks really good. Let's talk about the highlight here, really, is the defense. The defense of Indy looks phenomenal. And they have the perfect quarterback in Phillip Rivers to have that ball control style. So the big story out of Indy is don't trust the backfield, don't trust pass catchers. Their defense is really good. I hope you got their defense. We're going to move on to the Lions. The Detroit Lions. So the Lions, Stafford, 24-42. 42 pass attempts is a lot. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. This is without Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay went out in the first quarter. We don't have any surefire updates on him yet, but definitely worth monitoring. If he stays out, Hawkinson and Marvin Jones Jr. get a significant bump in their, potential ceilings and floors, realistically. The backfield here is an absolute mess, which is weird because the Matt Patricia team, you would think they're going to be defense and run, defense and run, defense and run. Defense looked terrible. They let Phillip Rivers just put up 3 TDs on them. Their defense looked bad. Their backfield looks weird. Peterson got 5 carries. Swift got 6 carries. 29 total rushing yards for the Lions. And it's not, I don't know. I know that Indy has a very good defense, but I don't think that 29 rushing yards is indicative of this backfield. So I'm a little disappointed in Detroit. It's backfield, and obviously it's a backfield that's super messy, and I don't want any part of it. I don't want any part of Detroit's backfield. I think the best bet is DeAndre Swift long term for the year. He did get 5 targets in this game, 4 targets, which is relevant for fantasy purposes. He's the only back I would want out of there, but I don't feel super strongly about him. Golladay 0 for 4, 0 catches on 4 targets before leaving the game. Hawkinson got 10 targets. Hall got 7. Marvin Jones got 7 with 2 touchdowns. Swift got 4, which keeps him fantasy relevant. Hawkinson's 10 targets with Golladay out is a big indicator of what that offense is looking to do, especially in games they're trailing. I don't think that's a surprise. We knew Hawkinson was a stud, and he's only going to get more involved if Kenny Galladay's out. Ultimately, this looks like it should be a passing team, even though it goes against Patricia's personal philosophies. Their personnel dictates that this should be a passing team. And this might have been the transition we saw, though realistically it's probably just because they were losing by a bunch that they threw a bunch. So I don't want to read too much into this game from Detroit, other than their backfield looks like an absolute mess. The Detroit Lions fan turned my power off. Okay. We got the Vikings next. Minnesota Vikings. Cousins, 14 whole pass attempts. So Cousins threw the ball 14 times. Completed 11 of them. 160 yards, 1 TD. Big story here was obviously Dalvin Cook, 4 touchdowns. 3 of them on the ground, 1 through the air. He did rush the ball 30 times for 163 yards. It's over 5 yards a carry on 30 totes. Pretty impressive. Alexander Mattison, only 3 carries. So, when they said Dalvin Cook was coming back on a no pitch count, they meant it. This guy's back. He's here to play. And I think the Vikes showed their true team identity this week, and it's going to be the run. These guys are going to lean on the run just like they did the first few games before Cook got hurt, and that is going to be their team identity. What does this mean? It means nothing good for Thielen or Jefferson or Cousins, really. Adam Thielen's still going to be a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Jefferson's a wide receiver 3, high one with upside. But I do believe this is the Vikings we saw this week are the real Vikings. I think it was a fluke they beat the Packers, but I think they did the right game plan. They slowed down the game a ton and didn't give Aaron Rodgers too much time. And that was a very smart game plan for the Vikings. And I think the big word for them this week is identity. They showed their identity. They are a rushing defensive, like a rushing gritty team. Thielen and Jefferson each had 4 targets. Dalvin Cook also had 3. Dalvin Cook was the story of the Vikes this week, and I think he's the story of the Vikes the rest of the year. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Rodgers went 27 for 41, 3 TDs, 291 yards. Jamal Williams carried 16 times for 75 yards. Target share, Devontae Adams 12, Tanyan 7, Jamal Williams 6, Sternberger 4. Adams with 3 TDs for Devontae Adams. Now, if you've been following me, I've said Devontae Adams is going to be wide receiver 1 for the remainder of the year since he came back from his injury. Although his first week back looked a little sketchy against the Bucs, he has turned it on since and is showing me that I'm probably going to be right on that prediction. Devontae Adams, mark my words, is wide receiver number 1 for the remainder of the year from his injury point on. And his target share here is high. The big word here for this team is trust. And what we see is that Aaron Rodgers trusts Devontae Adams and he trusts Jamal Williams the way he trusts Aaron Jones. Those are the 3 guys he trusts. And when you have Aaron Rodgers' trust, he's going to feed you the ball. And so that's what I think we gathered from this. Strange game that they lost. It was lost more because the Vikes really had a masterful game plan and just grinded the clock out. And even though Rodgers threw 41 times, I mean, you look at Cook had 30 carries. Like, the Minnesota knew they had to just play a real attrition-based game here because Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers and he's got a lot to prove. So, big takeaway here is that until Aaron Jones comes back, Jamal Williams is a locked and loaded RB1, and that Devontae Adams is every bit as good as we thought. Even when he's getting tripled, he's getting tons of targets and peppered. Devontae Adams, number 1 receiver for the rest of the year. Packers, Tanyan. Tanyan looks good too. If Tanyan is going to be their starting tight end, which he is, looks like he's going to be a steady low-end tight end 1 play for the rest of the year. So good on you guys who got Tanyan. I do believe he's going to be the guy behind. I mean, obviously you got Devontae Adams and whichever running back is playing, and then Tanyan will be the 3rd option. So I think Tanyan's a fine play. Damn, this is going deep into our power hour. So we're going to talk about the Chargers. This could probably run just over an hour. Sorry, guys. Try to keep it quick. Justin Herbert, 29 of 43, 278, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 3 carries for 21. So the eye test, this kid looks great. Him and Joe Burrow, I'm putting like this right now. I think I still am a little higher on Burrow, honestly, but Herbert could prove me wrong on that. He looks amazing. Both these guys do. He's the future of this team. Definitely a good quality quarterback and probably a borderline quarterback 1 for the remainder of the year. Big takeaways here. Backfield. Jackson carried the ball 17 times for 89 yards. Kelly carried it for 7 for 32. Troy Pope, where did he come from? Carried it 10 times for 67 yards. Troy Pope also got 7 targets. Who's Troy Pope and where did he come from? I don't know. But he dominated the backfield this week. Jackson looked good too. Jackson technically dominated the backfield. But Tremaine Pope took over Kelly's job this week. So that's worth noting. Keep an eye on Pope. We're getting Eckler back in a few weeks, but this backfield situation is one to monitor. And currently, I like Jackson. I'll play Jackson. But realistically, the big takeaway here is his backfield's also. See the theme of all these teams? A lot of them, backfield's a mess. Don't know who to trust out of this backfield at all. If I had to pick one right now, it would be Jackson. Keenan Allen is the target monster on this team. He got 11. Mike Williams actually got 8. Pope got 7. Hunter Henry only with 5. And Jackson actually with 5. So Jackson had a pretty good telling game that he is currently that team's RB1. But I think this is going to get really muddy when Eckler comes back. Keenan Allen is definitely a wide receiver 1, simply due to volume for the remainder of the year. Mike Williams had some good plays here. He's on the wide receiver 3 to 4 radar. But ultimately, Keenan Allen is the guy I trust the most in this offense by a mile. He's getting so much volume, and he's really doing pretty good with it. We're going to talk about the Broncos. So the Broncos, Drew Lock, 26 of 41, 3 TDs, 1 pick. Drew Lock looked good, man. He doesn't look good on the level of the Burrow and the Herberts, but he did look actually okay in this one. Gordon carried the ball 8 times for 26 yards. Lindsey carried the ball 6 times for 83 yards and a touch. Targets here, Judy got 10, which is promising for Judy owners. Fant with 9, which is good for any Fant owners. Fant's going to definitely be a tight end 1 for the remainder of the year. Gordon actually had 7 targets. Lindsey only had 3, and Hamilton had 5. So Gordon and Lindsey, the backfield situation there is again, as weird as it ever is. Both guys are RB3 dart throws, but you never know which guy is going to get the immense volume. Both guys have very low floors and reasonably high ceilings. So it's just it's a messy offense over there. The only guy I really like on this entire offense is Noah Fant. He's going to be a top 5 tight end this year. And he's going to be the guy I trust the most on this offense by a mile. What a great comeback for these guys, man. They had a really good game. Just a side note, the defense really stepped up in the second half. And Drew Lock really showed that he actually has the potential to be a starting quarterback in the NFL with this comeback. So this could be Drew Lock's coming out party in terms of, hey, I'm ready. I'm actually here, guys. And it's worth monitoring. To my Saints. What can I say about my Saints? Michael Thomas-less Saints. So Breeze went 31 for 41, 280, 2 TDs. Pretty vintage Breeze. Good ball control, accurate passing on the day. Kamara was definitely the star of the day, which we kind of knew he would be with Michael Thomas out. I actually, honestly, I didn't have Kamara super high on my personal rankings this week because I'm logical enough to think that an NFL coach would key in on the one offensive player that the opposition has. I guess I think too much like Bill Belichick when it comes to that shit. But look, if you got one guy who's going to make all the plays, and his name is Alvin Kamara, and you're the opposing defense, why wouldn't you just stick 2 guys spying on Kamara every play, and then just leave the rest of the receivers one-on-one? That's what I would do. You just key in on Kamara. Shut him down. You shut the Saints offense down. It's coming from a Saints fan. Without Michael Thomas, there's limited options. Drew Brees can spread the ball around. He's always shown the propensity to do that even when he doesn't have receivers. So it's not a surefire technique to beat the Saints. But in a situation like this, proper play defensively would have been a key in on Kamara. But they didn't. So Kamara got 13 targets, 1 billion catches. He rushed 12 times for 67 yards. Cook had 7 targets. Traquan Smith with 7. Next highest with 3. Latavius Murray, 8 carries for 17. Taysom Hill, 5 carries for 35. So Kamara is a story here. Alvin Kamara is definitely the heart and soul of the Saints, especially when they don't have Michael Thomas. And Kamara is going to be running back number 1 this year. You can just book that. Alvin Kamara will finish the year as RB number 1. Saints won a game they should have won against Chicago. Saints defense actually looked, in my opinion, worse than they should have against a very bad Chicago offense. I thought the Saints defense was a very good play this week, and they didn't play terribly. I believe they still had 5 sacks and a pick or something, but I was expecting more out of them on the fantasy front. They only got us 8 points, while you had teams like Kansas City, Indy, and a few more doing better. Speaking of that game, Chicago. So Chicago, I don't have a ton of good things to say about this team. I think their quarterback situation's awful. I think they got dumb and dumber at quarterback. Really shouldn't put it like that. Nick Foles is extremely intelligent, so it should be like super intelligent quarterback who can't play versus kind of dumb quarterback with more talent. And that makes both those quarterback situations not very good. You have a very cerebral quarterback in Foles. You have a very Neanderthal sort of thing going with Trubisky. So I don't know, man. I don't like either of those quarterbacks. Foles went 28 for 41, 272, 2 TDs, 1 pick. He actually had pretty numbers similar to Breeze, to be honest with you. Montgomery went 21 carries for 89 yards. Anthony Miller with 11 targets. Allen Robinson with 7. Mooney with 6. Graham with 7. Montgomery with 5. Big takeaway here, David Montgomery is involved in the passing game. So David Montgomery is a fringe RB1/2 for the remainder of the year. He's just being involved, man. You got to chase the volume. The passing situation here is wild. I still like Allen Robinson the most, but you got Mooney coming on. You got Anthony Miller coming out of nowhere this week with 11 targets. You got Jimmy Graham still getting 7 targets. Now, Nick Foles threw a lot more passes in this one than he normally would throw. I'm not sure why that was the case, but Nick Foles normally doesn't get this kind of throwing volume. So this is a lot to expect out of the Bears defense. The Bears offense. I don't like anyone on this team outside of David Montgomery, possibly Allen Robinson, and possibly the Bears defense if they figure it out. And then you got this guy on the Bears just sucker punching a guy on the Saints. Wild situation there. Crazy fight for Mr. Wims. There was something about him spitting or something like that, but the only footage I could see was that Gardner Johnson stuck his hand through Miller's face mask a play before that, but I didn't see anybody spit or anything like that, so I don't know. But Chicago's a mess. For a team that has a really good record right now, they're a terrible team. And if they make the playoffs, it'll be wild card, and they won't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. They're just not a good team. San Francisco 49ers. There we go. So, what can we say about the Niners? Quarterback situation. Crazy, man. You got Jimmy G going 11 of 16, 84 yards and an interception before getting hurt and being removed from the game. Nick Mullins comes in like a stallion. Goes 18 of 25, 238 for 2 touchdowns. Man, Mullins looked pretty good. Not going to lie. Backfield situation in San Francisco. I mean, what do you expect? Situation's as nutty as it is every week. We don't know what we're getting out of these guys. We got Tevin Coleman coming back. He carries the ball 2 or 3 times for like 30 yards and then leaves the game with an injury. We got Hasty getting all the touches. We got Jerick McKinnon coming in and getting hurt. We got Mostert on IR coming back sometime soon. Man, I don't know. JaMychal Hasty, anyway, went 12 carries for 29 yards, 1 touchdown. Doesn't look good, man. I don't think San Francisco's in a real good spot right now. I'm not going to lie. Another team with a good record that I don't think deserves it, and then I don't think is going to keep it. Ayuk got 11 targets. Kendrick Bourne got 10. Kittle only had 4. McKinnon had 4. Ayuk's for real, man. Ayuk, as long as Deebo Samuel is out, and I think even when Samuel comes back now, Ayuk's put himself on the radar. So I think Ayuk's going to be boom or bust week to week. I do believe that. I don't think he's got an incredibly high floor, but I do think his ceiling is going to be reasonably high. And that's how I feel about the entire San Francisco offense. Quite frankly, only player I'm interested in on this offense, George Kittle. Outside of that, maybe Ayuk. But that situation's all muddy. Niners offense is a mess. To an offense that's not a mess, the Seattle Seahawks. Definitely not a messy offense. They let Russ cook 27 of 37 for 4 touchdowns. DJ Dallas carried the ball 18 times for 41 yards. That's really only 2 yards a carry and a touchdown, though he did get 5 targets, which kept him very fantasy relevant. DK Metcalf, man, I said it. I'm giving myself props on this one because I called DK this week and I called Lockett last week. There's just certain games where you get a feel are going to go one way or another. This game felt like a very physical game. DK is a very physical receiver. He got 15 targets. 15 targets. This dude was just owning San Francisco defense. Lockett and DJ Dallas only with 5 targets. So I do think this is going to be Metcalf and Lockett back and forth week to week. I think some weeks they're both going to have good games where they each put up like 20, 15 to 20 fantasy points. Each of them are going to have games where you had Lockett last week with 50, Metcalf this week with like 40 or something, 30 something, 40. Both these guys are guys that I think have fairly high floors and extremely high ceilings. Obviously, it's going to be week to week with the two of them, but I love both of them. I'm happy to be playing either of them week to week. Backfield here is a little messy. I think Chris Carson's still the guy when he comes back, but he's got to get healthy. DJ Dallas doesn't look like a long-term thing, but he did look serviceable in this game. And Baby Braun, DK, man, huge game, huh? Everybody's favorite team to ream on and make fun of, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. Not now, Mr. DiNucci. So we got Mr. DiNucci. He went 21 of 40, 180 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. We had Ezekiel Elliott, 19 carries for 63 yards. Pollard, 7 carries for 40 yards. Pollard looked like the better runner, not going to lie. Zeke is the better talent, but I feel like Zeke's checked out. Zeke mentally just doesn't look there. Pollard's getting way more work. Or not way more work, but way more. He just looks better at the eye test. DiNucci looked awful. Dallas needs something else. I do think they need to feed Zeke more while DiNucci's in there. Zeke is still the only, currently with the current quarterback situation of the Dallas Cowboys, Zeke's the only player I want. Worth noting, Gallup got 12 targets. Schultz got 8. Lamb and Cooper each with 5. What you got to realize about these young quarterbacks that don't have a lot of experiences, they're not going to do a lot of reads. So they're going to throw to their first option, which in this team, everybody thinks it's Cooper, but it's actually Gallup on their depth chart. So Gallup's their wide receiver 1. Schultz, I was expecting, based on what we've seen, we can now expect whoever's their wide receiver 1 is first option, then he's going to look tight end as sort of a safety blanket. I thought Zeke was going to be seeing more receiving because of, he would be out checking down a lot. I really believe Zeke was going to get a lot more receiving work this week, and he didn't. So I hate the Dallas Cowboys offense as a whole right now. I don't want any player that's not named Ezekiel Elliott, and even Ezekiel Elliott is trending down. Finally, the final team. Another team that's just like, what the f is going on with this team? So Wentz, 15 for 27, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Wentz did not look great in this one against a very bad Dallas team. Boston Scott, 15 carries for 70. Clement, 5 carries for 24. Target share on the Eagles. Fulgham got 7. Rager got 6. Ward got 5. Goddard got 1. Big surprise here for me was Dallas Goddard. 1 target, bro. 1 target. This is by far the best player on your offense right now, Carson Wentz. My only thoughts is maybe Dallas Goddard wasn't fully healthy. He does get a bye week next week to heal, get to 100%. I'm expecting Dallas Goddard to come out of that bye week as a mega part of this offense. Because he did. What we saw, Fulgham still led the team in targets. Fulgham has turned out to be a surefire wide receiver too. Currently, he's getting the work. He's getting the targets. He's getting the touchdowns. He's getting the yards. So Fulgham is for real. I do think Goddard's going to cut into that workload. And I do think when they finally get Miles Sanders back, it's also going to cut into Fulgham's workload. He's going to fall to be a wide receiver 3/4, but still playable. And Goddard, I do see being a stud tight end 1 when he gets going, especially with Ertz out. So there you have it. The Ultimate Fan Guy Power Hour ran a little over an hour. I'm in an hour and 8. But I want to thank you guys for stopping in. I definitely love doing this, and I enjoy statistics. I enjoy giving you guys trends we like to see and we don't like to see, and kind of, my takes on certain things. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have anything nice to say, I guess, say that as well. If you have any differing opinions where you think I'm wrong about something, you say that as well. But really, I just want to thank everyone for watching, and I wish you guys the best of luck this upcoming week. I'm going to be putting out a few more videos this week dealing with some specific betting plays that I like for gambling purposes. and some of the lines I like and some of the hot plays for the week. This was just kind of a recap of last week and to kind of give you the trends that we see heading into next week. So till then, keep on keeping on and go for that championship. And remember, you're not eliminated until you're mathematically eliminated. So keep pressing for that fantasy title and rock and roll, baby. Let's go.